There is a cave in a quiet part of the country that two friends used to explore for fun. One of them kept a journal of everything they found inside it. It's detailed and ordinary and a little boring, right up until the entry where he describes the sound coming from behind a wall that should have been solid rock. After that, the entries change. And then, one day, they simply stop. Welcome back to the archive. Tonight's file is that journal, recovered from a personal website that went offline years ago. I'll call the man who wrote it Theo. He went into that cave with his friend to solve a small mystery. This is the record of what they found. Theo and his friend, I'll call him Ray, had explored their local cave dozens of times. It was small and familiar and completely safe. Until the day Theo noticed something he'd never noticed before. In the deepest chamber they could reach, at the back of a narrow passage, there was a draft. A steady, cold breath of air coming out of a crack in the solid rock wall. Air doesn't come from nowhere. A draft means space, an opening. Somewhere behind that wall was a part of the cave no one had ever been into. Theo writes that he put his hand against the crack and felt the air moving across his palm, and that, for reasons he couldn't explain, it frightened him, but not enough to stop. Over the next few weekends, they came back with tools, and they began to widen the crack. It took them 3 trips to open the crack wide enough to fit through, and on the other side was exactly what Theo had hoped for, and something he had not. A new passage, lower, tighter, and older feeling than the rest of the cave. The walls were damp and cold, and the draft was stronger here, moaning faintly as it moved. And carved into the rock, all along the passage, were symbols. Theo describes them carefully. Not natural cracks, not modern graffiti. Deliberate marks, cut deep into the stone, in rows, like writing. Spirals, lines, and one shape, repeated more than any other, that he could only describe as an eye. He photographed them. He sketched them into his journal. And he writes that the deeper they went, the more recent the carvings looked, as if someone had been adding to them, recently. This is where the journal changes. Theo stops writing like a hobbyist and starts writing like a man trying to convince himself he's fine. He describes a feeling, growing stronger every trip, that the passage did not want them there, that something in it was aware of them. He writes about a sound, beyond the reach of the headlamps, that he can only call breathing. And he writes about the nightmares, which started after their 3rd trip, and which were always the same. In the dream, he is back in the passage, alone, and the eye carved into the wall is open, and watching, and the wall is breathing. The last full entry describes their final trip. They reached a part of the passage that narrowed to a squeeze, barely wide enough for a person. Ray went first, and while Theo waited in the dark, alone, he writes that something reached out of the crack beside him and touched his arm. Cold fingers. He doesn't describe what happened next. The entry ends mid-sentence. 3 things about Theo's journal I have never been able to settle. The first, the cave is real. I traced it. It exists. In the county he named, exactly as he described it, down to the small front chamber. What I could not find was any record of the deeper passage, or the crack, or the symbols. The second, the photographs. Theo's journal links to a gallery of pictures he took inside the passage. The gallery still loads, but every image of the carved symbols is corrupted. In the same way, a band of static across the center, exactly where the eye should be. The third, The journal has one more entry after the one that ends mid-sentence. It was posted 4 days later. It is a single line, and the handwriting does not match the rest. It reads only, "We should not have opened the wall." After that line, the website was never updated again. I tried to find Theo. I found a man by a similar name, in the right part of the country, who went missing the same year the journal stopped, along with a friend. Their cars were found at the mouth of a cave. They were not, and the entrance, according to the report, had partially collapsed, sealing the deeper passage behind a wall of fallen rock. A wall someone would have to widen, again, to ever get back inside. This has been The Archive. If you ever find a draft of cold air coming out of solid rock, where no air should be, do yourself a favor. Leave the wall closed. Subscribe so you're here when the next file surfaces, and don't go looking for the space behind the wall.